Hello, today I'm adding Iron Commando from the Pico Interactive Collection 1 to my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever. Iron Commando was a late-era Super Nintendo game developed by Arcade Zone, a French studio who are also responsible for a game called Legend, another beat-em-up. Oh yeah, it's a beat-em-up, I didn't mention that bit already. So it's a European developed game, but it never saw a PAL release, as it was going to be released by Sony, but they abandoned third-party Super Nintendo publishing to focus on the PlayStation. It only saw a release at the time in Japan as Iron Commando Kutetsu no Senshi, so even though a PAL version was finished, it was never released. It was picked up in around 2013 or 2015 by Pico Interactive, who finally released it worldwide. It is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, largely in the Final Fight mould. However, there's a large variety of weapons, including guns and throwable objects.
Story.
I'm not even sure if there is really that much of a story. You can play as either Jack or Chang Li, who form the Iron Commando team. You have a mission to cross 10 environments fighting punks, gunmen and mutants and whatever. I think that's about it. Not much to speak of, but hey, it's a beat 'em up. All you need to know is that you're going to punch things.
Graphics.
As you can see by what's on screen, the graphics aren't bad. You've got some large colourful sprites, a bit of variety in the enemy design, although per level it stays largely the same with only a few appearing. The environments look decent, having a very dark, gritty atmosphere, well, sort of gritty comic book style anyway. Although the animation can be a bit stiff, the backgrounds can be a little bit flat. And one of the biggest negative is the designers thought, oh, this looks cool when we put some environment elements in the foreground. Only it often ends up blocking your view of the action. In essence, it looks like what it is, a mid-tier Super Nintendo brawler.
Sound and music.
The sound effects are punchy enough, they certainly do the job, although they're certainly not the clearest sounding. And I suppose the same goes for the music. The overall audio quality here is reasonable but nothing fantastic. The composition themselves are pretty good. I think the music is probably the strongest element of the game, but I certainly wouldn't consider it among the best Super Nintendo soundtracks out there, and it's not even particularly close to it. But yeah, it's decent.
Gameplay.
Well, it's a beat-em-up, a belt-scrolling beat-em-up if you like. And yes, it's definitely in the Final Fight mould. You've got your standard punches, kicks and combos, well, very light in the way of combos. It's not the most complex combat system, but it's not the most basic either. There are a lot of weapons and things to pick up, which adds a bit of variety. I mean, pretty much every enemy you fight will drop a weapon, and you'll constantly be picking up weapons and you'll be getting a lot of guns. But the combat also just feels a little bit loose and unrefined. The jump kick feels especially weird, and it really doesn't take long for repetition to set in, even with the weapons, and they don't feel all that impressive or good to use. And any novelty they had, well, you're bored of that within 5 minutes of playing the game. The game is also quite difficult, and when you run out of lives and need to continue, you're sent back to the beginning of the level, and the levels feel long.
Overall opinion.
Iron Commando is not a game on the Evercade that people talk about all that often, and it's not surprising. It pretty much gets lost in the shovel of the 20 large games that are on Pico Collection 1, and when there's a much better beat 'em up in the water margin, it's easy to forget this one exists. It's not terrible, it's just very average, pretty difficult, and ultimately rather forgettable.
Ranking.
To place Iron Commando on my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever, I've elected to put it above Battletoads, but below Mermaids of Atlantis, placing it at 291 out of 438 games that I've ranked so far. Okay, that's everything for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.